There's a specific kind of horror that comes from looking at a photograph of yourself doing something you've never done. Not a doctored photo, not a meme, a real photograph, candid, time-stamped, geotagged, of your face, your hands, your birthmark on your left collarbone at a rooftop bar in a city you've never visited, with a man you've never met, laughing like you've known him for years. I found that photo on a Tuesday in February. By Friday, I had found 47 more. By the following Tuesday, I understood that my twin sister had been living a parallel version of my life for almost 3 years, using my name, my photos, my personality, or her version of it. Building relationships, making promises, and leaving wreckage in my name in cities I had never set foot in. And the man in those photos? He was sitting in the third row at my wedding 4 months later, holding an invitation that had my name on it, waiting for me to walk down the aisle so he could finally meet the woman he thought he'd been falling in love with. That's where this story ends. Let me tell you how it started. My name is Claire. My twin sister's name is Deanna. We're identical in the way that makes strangers gasp. Same face, same build, same voice on the phone, same way of tilting our heads when we're thinking. Our mother used to say she could always tell us apart, and I believed her until I was about 14 and caught her calling me by the wrong name and covering smoothly like she'd meant to. Growing up, the twinness was mostly fine. We had our own friends, our own interests. I was quieter, more internal. I liked writing, reading, spending Saturday mornings with coffee and no agenda. Deanna was social, performative, always running toward whatever was loudest. We understood each other the way people do when they've shared every early experience, completely, and from a careful distance. The distance widened in our 20s. Deanna moved through jobs and cities and relationships with a velocity that looked exciting from the outside and exhausting from up close. She'd call me when things fell apart, a fired job here, a bad breakup there, and I'd listen and help when I could, and we'd settle back into our comfortable semi-closeness until the next crisis. I didn't think about what she might want that I had. I should have. I met my now husband, Patrick, when I was 29. He was steady, funny, genuinely kind, the kind of man I'd stopped believing existed because I'd spent my 20s meeting men who were one of those three things at most. We dated for a year and a half, got engaged, set a wedding date. Around the same time, I'd started a travel blog. Nothing massive, a few thousand followers, affiliate income that paid for the occasional nice dinner, a creative outlet I genuinely loved. I wrote under my full name, posted photos of trips, shared small observations about places and food, and the specific loneliness and freedom of moving through the world solo. It was mine. I was proud of it. What I didn't know, Deanna had found it. Not just found it. She had created a second account so similar to mine that the difference was invisible unless you looked closely. Same name, slightly different handle. She'd pulled my photos, reposted them, and built a presence that presented her as me. She used my voice, the writing style she'd grown up adjacent to, and she'd used it to construct a version of Claire that was more available, more adventurous, more willing. She used it to meet men. She used it to meet one man in particular. His name was Ryan. He lived in Portland. He was handsome and employed, and by every account from people who'd actually met him, genuinely lovely. He slid into what he thought was my DMs almost 8 months after the fake account launched. He thought he was talking to me. He was talking to Deanna for almost 3 years. Here's what I want you to understand about what that means. Ryan thought he was building a relationship with a real person who was real about who she was. He sent vulnerable messages. He made plans, real ones, so he thought. He told me about his family, his fears, his past. He fell for someone he believed was Claire. Meanwhile, real Claire, me, was engaged to Patrick, planning a wedding, working a job, living a life Deanna was quietly shadowing from her laptop. The only reason I found out at all is because of a coincidence so specific it almost doesn't seem real. I was visiting a friend in Portland for a long weekend in February. We went to a rooftop bar on Saturday night. I posted a photo from my actual account, my real one, with its modest following, from the location. Ryan saw it. Ryan, who had been talking to me for almost 3 years and knew my real account existed because Deanna had mentioned it, saw that I had just posted from a bar 4 blocks from his apartment. He commented, "Wait, are you actually in Portland right now? I'm so close to that bar." I had no idea who he was. I replied politely that I was just visiting for the weekend. He sent a DM. "Claire, it's Ryan. We've been talking for like 2.5 years. I know this is weird, but would you want to get coffee? I've always hoped we'd actually meet." I stared at my phone. I typed, "I'm sorry, I think there might be some confusion. I don't think we've spoken before." What came back was a wall of screenshots. I sat in a bathroom stall at that rooftop bar in Portland for 45 minutes going through screenshots of conversations I had never had, in a voice that was just similar enough to mine that I could see how someone who'd read my blog would believe it. Deanna had been careful. She'd never video called, always an excuse, never met in person, always something came up. She'd kept him at exactly the distance required to maintain the illusion and close enough to maintain the investment. He'd been invested. That was the worst part. This was not a casual thing for Ryan. He used words in those messages that people only use when they mean them. I called Deanna from that bathroom stall. She answered on the 3rd ring, cheerful. "Hey, how's Portland?" "I need you to tell me about Ryan," I said. A silence. "Who?" she said. "Deanna." Another silence, longer. "How did you find out?" she said. The cheerfulness was completely gone, just like that, switched off. "That doesn't matter," I said. "How long?" She told me. Almost 3 years. She said it like a confession, flat and fast, like ripping off a bandage. "Did you—" I stopped, reorganized. "Did you know Patrick exists? Did you ever involve my actual life?" "I never mentioned Patrick," she said. "I kept it totally separate, Claire, I swear." "You used my name, my photos, my personality, or her version of it, building relationships, making promises, and leaving wreckage in my name in cities I had never set foot in. And the man in those photos? He was sitting in the 3rd row at my wedding 4 months later, holding an invitation that had my name on it, waiting for me to walk down the aisle so he could finally meet the woman he thought he'd been falling in love with. That's where this story ends. Let me tell you how it started. I still don't know exactly why Deanna did it. I think it was a combination of things. Jealousy over my semi-stable life, a boredom with her own, and a need to see herself reflected through someone else's eyes, a need that didn't need to be bound up with the responsibilities of actual attachment. The ensuing months were a blur of wedding planning, constant tension with Deanna, and a roadmap for ending the deception that I'd begun constructing in that Portland bathroom. I remembered the burning feeling of every decision I made, choices about who should know and who shouldn't, choices about when to tell Ryan. You try to protect people, but you can't always. Finally, the wedding day arrived. It was a fresh spring day in April 2023. It was the day we'd planned for so long, but also the day I'd had to contend with the shadow of my twin sister hanging over it. I remember the anxious anticipation waiting for Ryan to arrive, he, a stranger yet not stranger, entering my world in the way he'd imagined for so long, but with the truth now a giant chasm between us. I told Patrick about Ryan's attendance from the moment it became a possibility, and he was totally understanding. When Ryan stepped out of his car at the venue, a fascination came over me as I watched him carry himself with a genuine air of confidence, even though it was a situation fraught with multiple layers of uncomfort. The day unfolded in a blur of emotions. He came, he saw me, and our worlds officially collided. When he approached me after the ceremony, he said, "I want you to know I'm not here because I'm confused about who you are. I know who you are. I came because you were honest with me when you didn't have to be, and that matters." There wasn't any awkwardness between Ryan and Patrick when they met, which was wonderful and made for a seamless flow during the reception. Deanna, as mentioned, wasn't at the wedding. I'd never wanted her there, and I'd made my decision in capital letters. I remember her agonizing cries when I broke the news to her. I didn't know what words to use to comfort her after she had no one to blame but herself. I did tell her that she was my twin, and that I'd been there for her all my life, but that there were limits to how much I could take. The invitation